We do want to welcome you to the webinar on Trend Brocato. We're going to talk about hair color techniques today. And with us on the webinar are Jessee Skittrell from the Northwest, from the Seattle area, and Paulo Bavonia, an educator from the Chicago area, both members of the Brocato Creative Design Team. So we're going to start out with Jessee walking us through some setup information on the trends that have been created for the fall. And then you'll hear from me a little bit more. You'll also hear from Paulo. So Jessee, let's get this rolling.
All right. So to start off with, what we wanted to do is really set the agenda for what we're going to be discussing today so you have an idea and anticipation on where we're going to be going. We're going to be talking about old Hollywood meets modern, and really what we're talking about is sellable looks versus hair origami. And when I say hair origami, I'm really addressing and talking about 50,000 foils and 14 different color bowls in the salon. And when you work with hair color manufacturers, a lot of times what I find is they want to do hair origami and they want to sell a whole bunch of hair color. So you're putting in a whole bunch of foils and you're putting in a whole bunch of hair color. This is really about looks that you can use in the salon right away and sell to your clients, and how do you sell them, and it's current and it's very relevant to what's going on in fashion at the moment. It's really about fluid, believable results at the end of the day, making sure that the client walks out with something that looks like it could have grown out of her head. So this, not 50,000 foils, it's very simplistic. We're going to discuss the marketing that's involved with it as well, and how to position it so that you can sell these to your clients and the verbiage, because it's really about how you choose to present this to your clients. Again, that ties back into how to consult with this and design principles. What am I looking for when I design a hair color with my guests? And so we have some basic design principles that we have to go through, as well as the actual application of these techniques. We have 3 different color techniques that we're going to show, and I think this is one of the first times we're actually introducing a male hair color technique as well as our tool selection. What tools in our Brocato toolbox are we actually choosing to use, and why are we choosing to use them, and how come they're so effective? Formulation, choosing our color choices, and why we chose and how we chose to formulate our developer that corresponds to that. Again, there will be time for question and answer and troubleshooting and different directions and variables that can address this. We're going to address the RED technique of home maintenance, how to recommend, educate, and demonstrate to your guests to make sure that they have the proper tools themselves at home to maintain this look, and more importantly, how to get into that conversation. So with that being said, that really takes us into a conversation about sellable looks versus hair origami. And I can't say that enough is we as a hair color company have really taken a stance, and we've chosen to not do 50,000 foils in a head of hair and create unbelievable looks in the salon. This isn't about an hour-and-a-half application. These are really about real-world looks. This is not color blocking. Vitally important that you understand that there's no color blocking that happens here. This is really about fluid movements and placements that complement the haircut shape. And really, it starts with the haircut shape and the haircut conversation. It's really where you need to make the decision on how you're going to place the color into the hair. These really are no more than 15 to 18 foils. We call them accent foils or spot foils here at Brocato, and it's really about simplistically. And one of the things that we encourage you to do is put that onto your menu and give it a name. And that's really, you can call it an accent foil, a T foil, a spot foil, whatever the case is, but it's up to 18 foils is really what you want to focus on, and create a charge against that. So many times I go into salons and I see salons that say we do a $5 per foil charge or $10 per foil charge. Eliminate that and just do it up to 18 foils costs you this much, and we call that an accent foil. These really should take no more than 30 minutes to apply. We also do a quick light, which is a base color plus an accent foil. Those are 30-minute applications. Paulo's going to address those a little bit more. And these are huge money makers in the salon, because I'm putting base color on and doing a retouch and putting color right over the top of it, whether it's balayage. Over there, I'm actually using foil to create segregation in the hair and putting it over the top of wet color. I haven't seen a hair color company do this in a long time, where they've actually said you can apply a lightener over the top of a base color. And here we are as Brocato saying that, and it's really about real-world application. And here's how to do it, and here's how to do it well. More than 15 foils, and we call that a base color with partial. Those should be about a 45-minute application or so, and should be priced accordingly for something like that. So think in terms of not the big elaborate services that you do in the salon. These should be smaller, quicker services that can be applied in 45 minutes or less in the salon. believable results. And you've heard us say this over and over and over again at Brocato, and it bears repeating every time we say it. One of the things that you really want to look for when you're designing hair color is a believable finish or result. So we want to follow natural hair color characteristics in the salon. Natural hair color characteristics say that natural color should be deeper and cooler at the scalp and lighter and brighter and warmer on the ends of the hair. Natural hair color should be lighter around the face because the hair is more exposed, and natural color should be lighter on the tips of the hair as well. Natural color should also be darker at the base. And then when you think in terms of highlights, low light should really dominate the space and the negative space. So often hair colorists forget light doesn't exist without dark. And really the low light space itself, the negative space is what we call it, is really just as important as the highlighted space. So to create a believable result, plug this into your head every time you design a hair color. In marketing, when you want to sell these looks to your customers, one of the first things that I always suggest to people is start talking about your guest's look. Stop talking about the service that they're getting. When we think in terms of a client, she books for a foil, or she books for a balayage, or she books for a single process gray coverage. Stop thinking of your guest in those terms and start looking at them as a whole guest and start using the verbiage for your look. Because a guest has more than one component to a look. It can be makeup, it can be their haircut shape, it can be their texture, it can be multiple services in hair color land. But if you start talking about their look, it leaves the door open so that you can go from one service to the next, and the guest begins to stop being a service and they start beginning to be about addressing their look. One of the biggest things that I suggest to hair colorists all over the place is in the fall, especially quarterly, you need to be asking your clients specifically, what is your hair color plan for fall? If you just ask this question to every single client that came into the salon, you'd be surprised what happens. So a great example of this is I had a guest in the salon on Friday that was new to the salon. She was a haircut guest only. She'd been referred to us. She was a natural level 8, pretty thick, coarse blonde hair naturally with some blonde highlights that were definitely grown out. And we were changing her haircut shape so dramatically that a lot of the highlights were going to be gone. So I simply just asked her, what is your hair color plan for fall? And she said, well, you know, I normally get highlights and my sister does them and they throw them in and so on and so forth. So I said, here's just a thought, just something to think about. If you were to place really nice pale platinum highlights along your part line, and then put an apricot directly underneath that, and then a soft copper directly underneath that, it would just give you something a little bit different and interesting that would complement you and help your haircut be the best version of itself and show off the texture. And albeit that client ended up spending all of that money with us and getting partial foil with a couple of extra colors where she intended to come into the salon just for a haircut, we were able to move her into the color department just based off of that one question. The thing is that hair colors get stuck in if your guest changes their makeup or adds a few components to their existing routine on a quarterly basis. We should be doing the same thing with our hair color. Hair color doesn't need to be stagnant from visit to visit. So what's your hair color plan for fall? And it'll open up a whole conversation. The other thing to do is when you're actually doing these applications and you're putting some foils into the head, even if you're putting 2 foils into the head or if you're putting 20 foils in the head, cover all the hair with something to create perception of value. Even if it's clear, even if you take that 0,0 clear out of your demi toolkit and apply it to the surrounding hair between those foils, what begins to happen is the guest perception is, I'm paying $120, I'm just pulling out a number, $120 for foils with some goop put onto my head. So regardless of the amount of foils that you put in, I'm taking responsibility for all of the hair, and I'm going to cover everything and create incredible shine to that hair and take responsibility. And that's really, again, I'm just going to reiterate it, take responsibility for all of the hair. It's vitally important that we stop looking at what's in that foil only, and more importantly, how that foil interacts with the rest of the hair that's around it, and how we can utilize and maximize that negative space and make sure that the hair that's surrounding is the right tone, or better yet, the shininess that it needs to be, or the reflection is there. Include Pinterest. Pinterest is your friend. Create Pinterest catalogs of your own work with befores and afters. Our guests no longer are looking at books. They bring in their Pinterest on their phone and they pop them up at your station and say, here's the inspiration picture that we're going for. So you should have your work on Pinterest as well as a catalog of repertoire that you can pull from that you know you can replicate. The highest engagement on Facebook is videos and images, to the point that if you post videos and images, Facebook will actually push those out to your fans and friends. If you just post text, Facebook does not push those out as big as they do when you have videos and images. And to quote Lady Gaga, is my favorite for this, as a society, we no longer communicate in words, we communicate in just images. So I think it's vitally important that you're very image heavy as a salon on your Pinterest and on your Facebook and engagement, because that's really what the guest is connecting to, is all those images. So with that being said, what do I look for when I design a hair color? How do I have this consultation with the guest? Well, we like to tie it to a couple of different things in the salon. One is the design principles. And design principles are really, if you're an architect, you're a florist, you're an interior designer, any of those design things, there are 7 basic different principles, 5 basic different principles that we take a look at, and they go in order. So you want to plug these into your brain when you're designing a color. The first is form. What is the overall form? What is the haircut shape? So a good hair color look starts off with a haircut discussion. It's always about the haircut first and how the hair color can make the haircut look its best. So you really want to make sure you have that haircut conversation first. I can't tell you how often I'm in salons and I watch them do balayage and then cut off 3 inches of hair, dramatically altering the finished hair color shape because their cut and color department weren't communicating with each other. So form is the first discussion and consultation. The second is function. It's emotional or it's utilitarian. So the function of her hair, is it about being sexy and feeling good and looking hot and sending out an emotional conversation to the world, or is she a soccer mom and it's really about ease and maintenance and how fast she can do her hair and simplicity? What is the function of it? And better yet, what is the maintenance of it? Nothing drives me crazier than when I watch a hair colorist in the salon talk a guest into a full head bleach and tone when they don't have the ability or the resources to maintain that and they don't have that discussion. So you really have to think about what the function is of that hair. Line. This is a really easy one, a great way to control a conversation. Hair should act like arrows and point to the best feature. So find the best feature on your guest and use the haircut form to act like arrows and point to that best feature, or use the hair color to point to their best feature and bring it out. So the conversation should sound like this. Mrs. Gottschalks, you have incredible eyes. If I was to make these front layers land right around your eyes at your cheekbones and lighten it up a little bit, it would draw all the attention to that area. And that immediately allows you to control the conversation and puts you as an expert instead of just a person that puts color on your head.
Jesse,
Yes, sir.
I think you've got a perfect example of that if you look at the photo of Paulo's model in the green dress. If you look at totally. the point of her bangs on the side, that's totally accentuating her eye.
Oh, completely. It actually does accentuate her eyes and her eyebrows, an incredibly groomed eyebrow shape, and it opens up the top of her forehead. It's incredible. That's a great example of that. The next one that you need to look at is texture, and texture evokes emotion, and it creates emotion when you're talking about it. So we've all seen the studies where the woman with the curly hair has a lot of energy and has a lot of excitement but isn't taken as serious, versus the client that has smooth hair. So if you just open up that conversation about, if you could have the ideal texture, what would that texture be? And where would you go with it? And what would be ideal for you? And I find that hair colorists have a tendency to skip texture before everything else. And this is really where Super Silk has been, for us in the salon, an incredible tool for us in the salon, because I can use it to manipulate texture on a temporary basis or a long-term basis. So I can manipulate and smooth out frizz and curl in the hair for 2 to 3 months at a time, or we can use it in an express type of way where we just spray it in during the haircut and then blow dry it in with a little hot shapes and flat iron it, give them the blow dry of their life, and they have smoothness from visit to visit, and it's been absolutely incredible.
We do have a promotion going on right now with Super Silk Solution on the right and Super Silk Detoxify Shampoo on the left. They're available to the salon open stock for the first time. Up to this point, we've been offering them to the salon as a kit. And now, if you check with your distributor, you can get the Super Silk Solution or Super Silk Detoxify Shampoo at 33% off during September and October. So if you haven't yet gotten involved in Super Silk, this is the perfect moment to step into Super Silk and to start getting excited about it.
And I can't reiterate it enough. Super Silk has been one of those things that has helped us really differentiate ourselves in the salon. One, with the no formaldehyde, and being able to spray it into the hair with such an easy application, comb it through, blow dry and flat iron. It's been incredible. Just doing the Super Silk Express helps us build the ticket. So I know, I'll just use my salon as an example. We prep and treat the hair and then spray 2 to 3 squirts, no more, of Super Silk into the hair, comb it through, and do the haircut with it in. So we're not actually allocating any extra time. At the end of the service, we put in Cloud9 blowout, blow dry the hair, give them the blow dry of a lifetime, and then tap it a little bit with an iron, and that client gets smoothness from visit to visit. And we're charging an additional $50 for that on every ticket, and I'm in a very suburban neighborhood market, so don't let the numbers throw you. But we're getting $50 extra added to that haircut ticket that we haven't allocated more time for, so it's a huge productivity, and organically the client steps up into the longer term Super Silk. 9 times out of 10, they move into the bigger one really quickly. So, form, function, line, hair should act like arrows and point to your best feature, texture, which evokes emotion, and then color. With color, light brings out and dark recedes. It's just like makeup. We put highlighter underneath our brow bone to make it jump out a little bit. We do the same thing with color. Anytime you make something light, it looks bigger. Anytime you make something dark, it recedes and disappears into the body. A great example of that is if you put highlights around the forehead's going to naturally, organically look a little bit bigger. If you have a guest who has a very broad jawline or is worried about feeling like she has a double chin, if you just lay in what I call a drape of 2 or 3 slices of darker color behind the ear that poke out underneath that haircut, it's organically going to make her neck feel a little bit more narrow and elongated, and makes it feel a little bit smaller. So I can use hair color to sculpt a face along with makeup. Again, it goes back to talking about their look. The other thing we need to think about is skull, fabric, and gravity in that order. What is the head shape telling the hair to do? So really feel their head shape. Anywhere the head breaks or curves, the hair is going to break open and show. So on the curves of the hair is really where the light should be, or the most color impact. Where the flat of the head is going to be, that's where the hair color needs to darken out a little bit, because that would naturally be a little bit darker. So what is the skull doing? What is it telling the hair to do? What is the fabric doing? Is it cotton, silk, or corduroy? Is it really curly and lives far away from the head, or is it flat and flattens out towards the head? And then naturally, what is gravity telling it to do? Where is it pulling that hair? Or where is the haircut shape going to pull it? Anywhere the head curves, the hair breaks open. So place color on the curve of the hair, and don't spend so much energy placing color on the flats of the head. So just some things to plug into your mind when you're designing your consultation and you're designing any form of hair color. Take these things into consideration. Paulo, did you want to talk about marker points?
Absolutely. Well, marker points are basically part of our multi-plane cutting system and coloring system, and that's basically the most integral part of it. Marker points are what we would use as a map for us to design on the head shape. It also helps us create a language for us to communicate with each other in designing haircuts and color techniques. And it helps also, as you were saying before, with the skull and the fabric, to create individual looks for our guests, because each of our guests' canvases or head shapes are different. So we use the rounds of the head vertically and horizontally to do this, so to push color out, to make color recede and make it darker. So by using these rounds, we're able to do that. And how we've basically broken it down, as you can see in the slide here, is that we have vertical and horizontal ones. And vertically, we've numbered one. So the first one is 1, which is at the bridge of the nose, vertically. 2 is basically at the outside corner of the eye. 3 is the front of the ear. 4 is behind the ear. 5 is outside corner, so the inside box, basically. And 6 is finally the center back. So basically, if you were to take a comb and lay it on the forehead right at the bridge of the nose. Every time that comb would shift, and every curve would basically be a different plane or a different marker point. And the same thing also with the horizontal marker points. We're basically starting at the parietal ridge. We're using letters here. A would be at the parietal ridge, as you can see there. B would be at the curve of the head right above the ear, and C would be corner of the jaw or below the ear, and D would be basically the collarbone. So this helps us to actually create new looks and gives us ideas of when we create the canvas, how we can actually also color the canvas or paint the canvas so that the haircut and basically the color technique are married together, and we get an ultimate look, an individual look for the guest that's going to make the best them that can be that we're doing behind the chair for our guests.
The thing that makes this such an effective system is it helps it fit the guest, and because it fits on the guest, it moves easily. A technique moves easily from guest to guest, going various directions. Jess, you got us going the wrong direction.
Yeah, my fault. My fault. Sorry.
The first product that Paulo is going to be using on his technique is cream lights. And Brocato cream lights is a lighting system that's designed specifically for freehand techniques. You mix cream lights with 2 parts of rich cream developer, and because of the essential oils that protect the hair, you create 2 different results. The first is it doesn't run or imprint on the hair, so you don't need to surround it with foils or cotton. The second is it's only shampoo soluble, so you need to completely shampoo the hair to remove the cream lights from the hair, which makes it easy for us to color around it, to color over it, and also to use it on top of hair color. Paulo, let's walk through and look at how you're going to use cream lights on your model.
Okay. I just wanted to add that in using the cream lights, it's great because where I put it is where it stays, and I love that about that product. And it basically is because I do so much of balayage and a lot of freehand work, that cream lights is also probably the best tool in my toolbox to be able to color hair with. So what I basically did with this model was that we used on the next slide you'll actually see that we used a zigzag headband starting at the front of the ear, which is basically to us would be marker point 3, going all the way across the head shape to the front of the ear on the other side, again connecting to marker point 3. And what we did as a zigzag thing was we basically used our cream lights with Brocato Color Project 10 volume developer and pre-lightened the hairband, processed it gently maybe for about 20 minutes, no more than that, just to get a couple levels of lift and expose a little bit of that underlying pigment. And then we basically did was at that point, once it was processed and we got that underlying pigment and just decolorized it a little bit, we gently shampooed that out, and I actually dried the hair again and then applied our durable demi over the entire head, which is one part of our 555, so it's a level 5 double red Brocato color, and 20% of my my formula was /55 intensifier, which is again our red intensifier, Color Project Permanent. So we're doing that. We mixed one part of that with one part of Perfectly Clear, one part of demi-activating cream, and we processed that. So it basically gave us a really, really beautiful soft, and like we said, we're not trying to create color blocking. We're not trying to create something that's basically just something that's very soft, very sexy, and basically I like to use the word smoldering colors, because that's kind of what we are trying to project with this new debauchery collection that is out.
Using permanent color with demi-activator, with clear, and with developer gives you the option of creating an overlay that doesn't lift. It just brightens and intensifies. And if you look at this photo of the model, you can see beyond the waves and the curls, there's a lot of dimension to the color. It's not a solid form, but there's a brightness around the frame, and really the place where I can see it the most is if you look at the right-hand side of the page, you can see where there's a little streak of brightness that comes down over her right cheek, and that's the result of the headband of highlight that Paulo put across the top of the head.
I think it's vitally important, though, too, Gary, what Paulo said, is this season it's about fluid blended color. It's no longer about intense high contrast. So you'll notice it's not heavy, heavy contrast. It's just very fluid and everything flows together. You don't see a start and stop point.
Exactly.
So on this next model, on this next techniques that we did, we basically, again, went with the same idea, really soft, very, very pretty, very sexy hair color. And what we did was we basically on the top of the head created an X, which again is between marker points A, or the two parietal ridges that you see there, and then between marker points 3 and 4, which are in front of the ear and behind the ear. And then we took a crescent, or if we want to use the word smiley face, right in front of that, and just did that. And then on the side view, we actually took 2 little commas on the side also, just to kind of create some softness. And again, we're taking those right at the rounds of the head, so that way it actually, that color, that lightness really breaks out, and it brightens up the face and accentuates everything about her. And one of the things that I really loved about this girl's hair, or this girl's face, was her lips. And I really wanted to make sure that not only we focused on her lips, but her eyes. So it was really important that where we placed this color, that it was really going to accentuate those things. And I kind of did the same thing with this, was I just decolorized it a little bit with our cream lights. And what I did was I used a balayage technique, which is basically our double lead-in technique. So you're basically creating a V at the scalp, and just basically softening it, or like what I like to say is kind of feather in between, so that we're going back to natural color techniques where it's, you know, softer, darker, deeper at the base, lighter, brighter on the ends. Because if we really think about how hair moves, you know, the hair really moves from the parietal ridge down, and a lot of times when we're creating looks, it's about where the hair is moving and creating that softness and showing off that movement in the hair. So I think it's important that when we do those techniques, we're really focusing on those ends where the hair is moving. And we basically lightened it again, a couple of shades, decolorized it with our cream lights and 10 volume developer, and let that process, about 20 minutes we let that one process, rinse it off, and right at the shampoo bowl we then dry it. We shampooed that out because we have to make sure that we shampoo cream lights out because of all the oils and how gentle it is and how conditioning it is. We wanted to make sure that we actually shampoo that out, and then we used our 743, which is our level 7 copper gold, or 7CG Brocato Color Project demi over the entire head, and processed that for 25 minutes. And what I love about our demi is that it's incredible for us to be able to use it. We can use it in so many different ways. We use it for color balancing. We use it for our men. We use it for toning. We use it for clients that have never had color done before to them. We use it for glazing. But it's just the predictable results that we get with it. And we know going in what the result is going to be at the outcome of the service. And one of the things that you can see on the swatch is that we have a P and a D on there, and it shows that we have this specific shade in permanent and we have it in demi, and that the permanent and the demi swatches match perfectly. So we're going to get really continuous color, beautiful color from basically base to ends. So basically showing all that, it just shows how very easily we can create looks by using our multi-plane coloring system, that is, by using the marker points and creating our own color techniques, and we do that every day in the salon.
It's a great example of quick techniques that can be added to a haircut, into a design, and create a complete package rather than just, oh, here's your color moment, and your color moment happens at a different time than your haircut or styling moment. So combining it all together really makes sense.
Yeah, and to expand on that, Gary, I can tell you I used Paulo's technique after putting this together in a quick light situation. So I did a gray retouch, applied the retouch, and then used the cream lights in the exact same placement that he did, and incredible. So I was able to take a ticket that was just a base color retouch and turn it into a more complex ticket with just literally, what, 5 or 6 foils over the whole head.
Yeah. And as you can see in that picture, it really we really accentuated with those light pieces kind of just brushing over her eyes, and those light pieces coming around her lips really made her look spectacular in it.
Hey, Paulo, one of the questions that I get when everybody sees this image is, what did you use to finish that? Because everybody's trying to get that texture right now.
I actually used the fire and ice, and I used a little bit of I actually mixed it with a little bit of Chaos Texture Paste, the Shatter Chaos Texture Paste, and actually blended them together and just did a little like soft round blow dry with it. And then actually after I had it all blown out with the round brush, I just kind of went in and kneaded it a little bit with my fingers, and just created that really, really soft look at the end. And I finished it off mixing a little bit of our carve with our little bit of actives, and just kind of put it on, pulled a little bit of the tips out of it so that we got that really kind of messy, sexy look out of it.
So your foundation was fire and ice with chaos blended?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay. Just curious because I keep getting asked that over and over what you use. That's great.
And it's hard because the hair looks a little bit finer. And it's,
yeah, exactly.
And it's really easy to take fine hair over the top into weighted and heavy.
I love the fact that you used a clay to create that, basically, with the chaos paste. That's great. So no matter what you do when you move that hair around, it's still going to separate and be textury like that. That's cool.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, so on our last trend was actually a male trend. This is Jacob. We're seeing right now in fashion a huge return to barbering and to really clean, pristine shapes for men. Menswear is hitting the fashion runway all over the place for women, as well as men are just polishing it up a little bit more by wearing suits. So what we wanted to do with Jacob was just create some visual texture in his new shape where we really tightened up the sides. Jacob is a natural level 3 organically, so he's very dark, and one of the things that's very difficult about a brunette is when they highlight their hair, they're highlighting for different purposes than a blonde would. A blonde highlights her hair to try to be blonde. A brunette highlights their hair to create visual texture to keep their hair from looking like it's one big monochromatic round net. So the color actually is used to create visual texture in the hair and make you see light moving through it. So of course, giving him a really strong barbered haircut to start off with is really where we started. What we did was we used our color project, and I used them in a couple of different tools. I used 2-stroke 01, which is a level 2, basically natural blue-black, and I use that with activating cream because I don't want any lift to the hair whatsoever. Sometimes, if you've ever used a blue-black and you used on hair that's pigmented, and you use a 20 volume or even a 10 volume, your underlying pigment still lifts before the overlying color goes on. So by me using an activating cream, I eliminate any of that underlying pigment shift. So the finished result is a nice, deep, reflective blue-black, but better yet, it wears out better because I don't have any of that underlying pigment for it to become brassy or very reddy looking over a period of time. So 201 and activating cream in equal proportions, beautiful tool. The second tool was 6-stroke 2 or 6M, which is a green base with 40 volume. And the reason we chose that is because we're a natural level 3. I want as cool of a result as I can possibly get. So by using 40 volume, I'm actually overlifting my underlying pigment because the reality is there's really only 2 ways to get rid of red or warmth in the hair. I either need to go lighter or go darker. So by overlifting my underlying pigment and then letting the color control in the bulb drop me back down to a 6, I'm actually able to gain control of the warmth of the underlying pigment in the hair and create a cool result to the finish. So I have two different tools, 201 activating cream and 6-stroke 2 and 40 volume. And what we did is we worked a pinwheel on the top of his head. So starting right at the apex of the head, marker point 4 from either side, we did about total 15 to 16 foils across the top of his head, and we took a weave pattern, and in that weave pattern, we applied a 6-stroke 2, and the hair in between the weaves, from the weave itself, we applied the 2-stroke 01. So literally I have 2 weaves sitting right next to each other.
So Jesse?
Yes, sir.
If I look in the pie shape, if I look at the marker point 1, it comes down. and I look at that dark gray pie just to the right of marker point 1, you wove that section and then colored both halves.
Correct. Correct. So it's two foils simultaneously sitting on top of each other. Thanks for the clarification. That's
So
great.
there's no hair left out.
No hair left out. And the idea was I literally have a blue-black piece that's absorbing color and giving me cool reflection, and another piece that's visually as light as I can get and still control warmth right next to it to create that visual texture. So I have light and dark.
Okay.
And just rotate it all the way around the surface of the head, staying actually just slightly above the parietal ridge because we were going to take all that hair color out at the end.
So 100% of the hair in the circle was colored.
100% of the hair in the circle was colored, just back to back to back in between.
Good.
And you can see the finished result here, especially where we have those lighter pieces that have that nice sable minky brown to them, and they're not red, they're not warm, they're just lighter versions of themselves, because Jacob really is in that B category client where he just got a little bit lighter when he was younger, but red hair on him will feel very artificial with his cool skin tones. And then that really dark blue-black, and I think a lot of times hairdressers are very uncomfortable using blue-black as a low-light piece, but in small doses, in thin pieces, it really absorbs light very well, especially when you want to detract from things, as long as you're not going heavy-handed with it all over the whole head, and you can see the finished result speaks for itself.
And it gives you a nice canvas to show that deep neutral highlight.
Absolutely. Light doesn't exist without dark. Negative space is just as important as the highlighted space.
Well, the really cool thing, Jesse, too, is that you can actually see in that picture how the dark pieces in front are giving you texture and separating the light and the dark, and it's creating a lot of texture in the front of his, in the front part of his hair. You know, that's the best that I can see it at. So it really creates a great look and a lot of movement in the hair, and I'm sure that's, you know, exactly what he wanted and what you wanted to create.
Exactly. Well, and the fun part about it is you could approach this with horizontal foils, which most hairdressers would do just across the mohawk section of the top. The problem is they look, anytime you draw a horizontal line, you create a weight to it. So it would have a very distinct outgrowth to it. Because this was pivoted and working on the diagonal, I get a much softer flow and fluidity through the hair without a start and stop point. So he's still wearing this today, and this was shot 2 months ago. So it has a ton of regrowth. We styled that actually with texture cream on the hair and blow dried it, and then finished off with gloss pomade, and that created that beautiful texture and separation in the hair, and you know, happy, healthy, shiny hair.
Looks great.
Let's do some quick Q&A, some troubleshooting, Jess.
All right. So, do you have questions there, Gary?
Nope.
Coming in. Okay. Do we want to open it up for that now?
Yeah, let's just go through each of these suggestions, and then we'll talk about questions at the end.
Okay, so in troubleshooting, some of the questions that we commonly get with these techniques is processing. How long to process? Can you under-process? Can you over-process? Can you use heat? You can absolutely use heat with all of the tools in Brocato, but you want to use heat as a tool, not as a rule. Don't use it as your default. Use it as a way to catch up. Don't use it as how you process everybody. You can cut your processing time down by half to 1/3 by using heat. If you're working on a normal head of hair, only about 1/3 of your processing time will be cut off. If you're working on a fine head of hair, about half your processing time will be cut off. And all you need is about 5 to 10 degrees of over room temperature in your heat to speed up the processing time. So you don't turn your dryers up to bake lightly till they're Jiffy Pop. They don't need to be. You just need a little bit of extra heat over the surface to speed up any processing time. The second part about that is put your timers away, because with Brocato, you can't overprocess. The progressive qualities are not there. In order for it to become progressive, it would have to sit on for 4 hours, and nobody's really doing that. If it sits on 10 minutes longer than it needs to be, you're going to be just fine. Nothing gets darker as it sits on the hair. It doesn't really work that way. And you saw how we varied volumes of developers using that. I think a lot of times as hair colorists, we try to move away from using like cream activator. Cream activator in that application on Jacob's head with that blue-black is perfect because I want to minimize the lift, but I want a permanent result. So don't be afraid to use your cream activator with your permanent color for a no-lift permanent application where there's no gray involved. And then you also saw where we used 40 volume with that 6-stroke 2 to overcome our underlying pigment and really create a cool finished result with the hair color, and both of those in that same application. So don't be so afraid of using your volumes of developer as a tool for lift or lack of lift. They're really there as tools for you. Toning formulas, when I get asked a lot about toner formulas, so I just like to include it every time we do any form of troubleshooting with these types of things. I personally, you know, Paulo, you could probably speak to this a little bit more. Do you have favorite toner formulas that you're using in the salon right now for fall?
I'm kind of really hitting a lot of the warm kind of tones. I know that you mentioned in one of your things like the apricots, and we're seeing a lot of that, a lot of warm, not so much like super deep red, but just like pretty soft reds. A lot of the copper golds. I've actually even had some fun mixing in a little bit of ash, or some of our, and the higher lift ones, even some of our 8 series, which is our silver, and just putting a few drops of those in there just to kind of soften up and not make those reds so intense. So yeah, I mean, toning's always great. So there's always kind of things, and like I said, like you said before, you know, we need to know the rules first, and then we can actually play with the rules, and that's where it comes down to eventually. When we know how to formulate and get the results out of it, now we can start playing and being kind of more creative after being so rigid with how we need to do our formula. So I've had a lot of fun with toning here, and I love our demi shades for that. I mean, I probably do a whole ton of demi. I actually probably use more demi than I do permanent in the salon myself.
Yeah. One of the things that with toning formulas, and you hit the nail on the head, you want to learn the rules like an expert so you can break them like an artist, but you have to know what the rules are before you can break them. So a great example of that is I colored Holly Brocato's hair last night, and we finished off with a color mask at the very end. And what we did is I put in 1 part of saturate treatment, 1 part of permanent color, and I used 8-0 and 9-stroke 3-6, and 1 part of 10 volume. And just mix that up in my bowl and let it sit while I rinsed off her base color and highlights, which I had just done, and I applied that for about 10-15 minutes over the ends, and it just took her summer blonde that was really strong and dropped it down to more of a fall blonde, but didn't really darken her so that she wasn't still in that blonde category. I call it the blonde, those warm toasty brown blondes that are on their way, much more fall-like. So it left her hair in phenomenal shape with incredible shine, and we can use those types of tools to add to our tickets at the end of the day. Retouching these, Paulo, how would you retouch your technique if she came in a month or 2 later?
Well, it's really easy to do that because you've already got the formulation for it. You can actually pull apart the whole head shape and find the exact same pieces that you did. And I'd probably go over it and have to retouch, just since cream lights is such a kind of where you put it is where it goes stuff, it's real easy to be able to reapply it just on the regrowth and then let that process and then go over it a second time with the demi. And one of the things that I love doing in the salon, because I like to, like, you know, you see all the editorial here that we've put together, Jesse. I like my clients going out that way too. So a lot of things that I'm doing in the salon right now is where I'm actually double shotting a lot of clients with our demi. And how we do that is basically you mix twice the amount of demi color that you're going to use, and then, you know, apply the first part of it, let it process the allotted time to process, and then go back to the shampoo bowl, rinse, and then reapply what you have left. Because what we've done is we've let that color oxidize and become basically a temporary color and just put another layer over the top of that color. So what it's going to do is obviously it's going to have less fading, really intensify the color, really make the color stronger, deeper, richer color, so that by doing it that way, especially on the retouching time, it really pops that color out and makes it really bright and intense.
Beautiful. And the other part about that too is by doing that double lead-in that Paulo did in the balayage, it has a nice soft outgrowth, which natural hair color characteristics say deeper and cooler at the scalp, lighter and brighter and warmer on the ends. So it should already look like that. So just doing a traditional retouch and refreshing those ends with that double shot that he's talking about, it's still going to look fabulous and incredible, because that's how it should look. It is a little bit lived in and a little bit softer. We always get questions about working over previously colored hair. How do you do that, and how do you use color? Does color lift color? Not predictably. If I'm not working over Brocato color, I wouldn't try it. I would definitely go for lightening the hair first and then depositing color over the top of it. But if I'm working over the top of Brocato hair color, I know that with confidence that I can use Brocato hair color and raise my volume of developer and shift color out of the hair shaft. Can I take a blue-black hair color like Jacob's and turn it into a platinum blonde with high lift tint? Absolutely not. But can I take it and shift it up a level or two? I can absolutely do that by far, and that's one of the huge selling features to Brocato that's been incredible for me, is being able to shift color over previously colored hair just by raising my volumes of developers.
Jessee, one of the things that makes a big difference here is we're to a place now where so many of our clients are colored. There are people coming in who have colored their hair at home, colored their hair in other salons, in addition to the people that we've been working on in the salon and our guests that we've continued to color. So would you talk for a minute about making color changes? I think one of the things that makes color such a lively technique and such a lively service in the salon is it isn't the same every single time. So when they come back in 6 weeks, when they come back in 3 months, when they come back in 6 months, what kind of options are available?
Well, there's several options available. The first thing that I would say is when you're applying a single process retouch, apply your retouch in a horizontal application like you traditionally would do. Turn your brush vertically and kind of drag some of the pieces through till the ends get dry. It starts the process of conversation of deeper at the scalp and lighter and brighter and warmer on the ends, because then it's the hair organically works that way and it looks softer to begin with. And then what happens is once you get into the into the spring and the summer, it becomes very easy to introduce balayage into the hair, and then in the summer you go back into doing a little bit heavier foiled type of a look to that guest. We do a lot of base bumping in the salon where we'll bump the guest's base up a level or two and add balayage highlights, and then in the fall we'll turn down the volume on that color a little bit by creating a little bit of dimension between their foils and using deposit only color that's in a mid-range blonde. Apply it to the mid-lengths and ends, and let the ends hang out a little bit dry and create that gradation. So I really encourage hairdressers, stop looking at your guest as a consistent piece. Look, their hair color should change from season to season to season, even if it's just slightly. Have a hair color plan and articulate it to your guest. So when they're in the chair, Mrs. Gottschalk's, you might want to give some thought to, in the fall, we're going to do this. Give them something to look forward to on their next visit. And with Brocato, it becomes really easy because you're working with oxidative hair color. It goes through a normal lightening process if you do have to apply a lightener over previously colored hair, or using color to shift color. It works beautifully, beautifully.
It's great. So it's about the long-term vision, not just about today's appointment.
Correct.
And figuring out where they're going to go. Let's talk
Lifetime
about
value.
Let's talk about any questions. Does anybody have any questions about the color techniques we talked about, or the specific suggestions we've made? If you want to raise your hand or type a question to us, we'd be happy to share it with everybody and answer your question. Anybody? I don't see any hands. That's awesome. It means we've been clear. We've done our very best. Oh, here's one. Yvonne wants to know, how many foils would you say in the zigzag technique? Talk about whether you use foil in your band, in your headband. Paulo?
Basically, I probably did probably 12 foils was the total that I used on that whole headband. And so I just kind of placed them, towards the face. Apply the color, and I also did a balayage technique on that one also. So I kind of just put them in there, folded them up, and then I had back-to-back foils and the zigzag parting. So it was basically going across the top and all the way around. So yeah, only about 12 foils.
So you're just working through the section to get that hair covered in the largest amounts you could manage.
Correct.
Okay, great. Another thing is using cream lights. If the hair is shorter, a little bit shorter, you could get it to stand up. You could probably use cream lights and not use any foil at all.
Yeah, I've done that also in the past.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, let's move forward and talk about home maintenance.
Okay, so obviously when you create these techniques, this is a huge investment for your guest as far as money is concerned. So you want to make sure that you give them the service of home maintenance. And I like to tell people, stop talking about retail and just start talking about home maintenance and talk about investment, protecting your investment. We call it the RED, R-E-D, recommend, educate, demonstrate with the guests. It's vitally important at the beginning of the service, when you have this discussion about the investment, you need to make a recommendation of product. Before you even start doing the service, you need to have that conversation about what you're recommending. While you're doing the service, you need to educate the guest on what you're using, give it a what to do with a what to use, and then of course demonstrate it. Put it on their hair, comb it through, what brush, what tool you're going to be using. So often I watch hairdressers just throw it at them at the very end of the service and say, do you need any product? And throw it at them, and then they walk away. Of course they don't need product at that point because you're setting them up. So you have to have the RED in place before you actually ask for the sale of the product. So recommend, educate, demonstrate. So we always ask, did you read the guest? If you didn't read the guest, you're done. And the easiest way to close the sale when you're at the very end and you've made your recommendation, you've educated, you've demonstrated, I like to ask, do you have anything, excuse me, do you have everything you need to style your hair at home? And surprisingly, you'd be surprised at how often just asking that question, they're going to have an answer for you that's a stock-up. Always have a promotion in-house to speak of, and it creates excitement, especially in the salon. Right now, it's been really fun I know for my team, because we have the summer styling BOGO going on. That has made a huge difference. If you wanted to talk about those, Gare.
We've got 6 products that we selected for a buy one get one free sale. Saturate shampoo and saturate treatment, because we want to help the hair recover from the trauma of summertime. Constructor Deep Repair is also a tool to help in that repair process. If they've been to the pool, they've been to the beach, they've been on vacation, even if they just haven't been paying attention because it was the summer, we can help create the moisture balance in the hair and the strength they need as they prepare their hair for the fall and for the heavy styling and some of the adventures that they'll have during the holiday season. We've also selected 3 styling products that are gentle and rejuvenating, that don't create a whole lot of hair stress. Curl Karma will create curl and texture with a weightless feel on hair that has that is in need of moisture and in need of nourishment. Carve allows you to pose and position the hair in a casual, soft style. And then Texture Cream, I think we use Texture Cream on a couple of the models that you saw today. Texture Cream allows you to create body and fullness and direction in hair that doesn't have a lot of body to it, and it doesn't give a really strong crispy hold, just a new texture and a new feel to the hair. So they're a little bit more casual, a little bit lighter, and a little bit nicer to hair that may have had some stress over the course of the summer. 2 counter displays that we have available right now focus on the breast cancer awareness campaigns that you'll probably want to focus on in the salon in October. It's not too early to start, and somebody told us that it's also not wrong to hold on to pink shimmer spray into the holidays because it can be a big deal. Those 2 promos are the travel size of Max Hold hairspray with a pink cap as a reminder for breast cancer awareness. And then one of our favorites that comes back every few years is pink shimmer spray. Pink shimmer spray really puts a little bit of glam in everybody. It's great fun for kids, but it's also fun for anyone that's doing breast cancer awareness campaigns or any kind of energy or activity or any kind of meeting around breast cancer. It's a great thing to use shimmer spray. Spray it on the invitation, spray it on the tablecloths, and of course, always spray it in your client's hair before they leave the salon. You can get information on these obviously from your Brocato distributors and from your sales consultant. Jess?
I just had to share a quick story. We've put the pink shimmer spray on our Wi-Fi table at the salon, and we're moving one of those a week, one whole POP box on average about a week. So they're just flying off the shelf. It's been a really fun promotion, as well as the buy one, get one. The stylist, it creates a lot of excitement and to have something going through the house that they can sell through and gives them something to talk to, especially right now you saw with Paulo's model where the really undone soft hair that's got a lot of texture to it. Curl Karma, Texture, and Carve are perfect for that, but well hydrated hair at the same time.
So that wraps up today's webinar. We hope you've enjoyed the time with us, and we hope you've been able to be here. We just got a message from one salon owner friend who said he just loves the webinars because it's a way of training his entire staff and having them all get refocused every month. So we're happy to be there for you and to help you. Our next webinar will be held on October 14th. It's again a Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time, and the focus is going to be taking advantage of the holidays. We're doing a two-part holiday series, one in October and one in November. The first one in October is about holiday promoting, both of services and of products in the salon, about putting together holiday parties and taking advantage of this time. Studies have shown us that in November and December, the salon can actually do twice as much business as they do in a normal month just by focusing on the season and really getting on target for those 2 solid months. It's a great way to tie up and finish up the year. So that's what we'll be doing in October. And then in November, we're working on a styling webinar for easy updos to help you with holiday styles and to help for Christmas parties and those kinds of things in the salon. So we've got some great webinars coming your way. We're glad that you're able to spend the time with us today. Anything else, Paulo or Jesse?
I'm good. Did we talk to Sam?
Sam?
I just want to say thanks everybody for listening. And what is there not to like about this combination of these three guys sharing ideas and talking back and forth? What a fantastic presentation. And Jesse, it's been great having you in the salon for the last couple of days. Paulo, we need to get you out here in New York. You guys take care.
Thank you, Sam. Thanks, everybody. We'll stay online for the next few minutes.